Hi, welcome to my demonstration of how to make a professional looking map layout in ArcGIS. My name is Stuart Bruce. I'm with the Washington College GIS program. I'm the program coordinator. This lecture goes along with our GT-101 course on the sort of basics of how to get to using ArcGIS and understanding what GIS is. Step one, we're going to turn on ArcMap, fire this up, and we have an option of starting with an existing map. And what we're going to do is for this particular lab exercise, we have preloaded some data for you, and we have a map layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the Browse for More option. And on my computer, I have put the exercise data on my C drive. Excuse me. You may have put this in a different location. But mine, I'm going to look on the C drive and in my GT-101 folder, which contains all the data you need for every exercise in this course. I'm going to go inside the Map Layouts folder. Now, when you go inside the Map Layouts folder, the first thing you'll notice is that we have 3 separate folders. So I believe that variety is the spice of life, and you can pick any of these folders to do the exercise. I'm going to use the data from Chestertown, Maryland, because this is where Washington College is located. So I open up this folder, and inside the Map Layouts folder, I have a map document called Layout. I'm going to go ahead and select that and open it up. Now I have a variety of data that I'm going to use to make my map. If we look over in the table of contents, you'll notice I have some point layers. So I have the Chestertown Middle School, Garnet Elementary School, and Washington College. I have some roads. I have some polygons, basically the Chestertown town boundary, counties, and I have some aerial imagery. Now, what I'm going to do is, first off, I'm going to switch to the layout view. Now, you can switch to the layout view by coming down at the lower left-hand corner of the data frame and click on the Layout View button, or you can come up to the View pull-down and select Layout View. So if I was to hit Print right now, this is what my map would look like. Now the first thing I'm going to do is try to decide what layers I want to show on my map. Looking at what data I have available, I'm going to go ahead and for right now, I'm going to turn off the Chestertown boundary, and I'm going to turn off the county layer. Then I'm going to go ahead and zoom into my layout and take a look at what I see. Now what I see here is my 3 different points that I want to highlight for my map. I have a nice aerial photograph as a background. Now the first thing I notice is that when I look at this map that my dots are kind of small. So I may want to make those a little bit bigger. I'm going to come over here to the table of contents, and I'm going to go ahead and click directly on these symbols, and I'm going to make them bigger. Right now they're size 25. I'm going to make them size 50, and we'll see what that looks like. Dots are much more visible. You can go ahead and click on Garnet. And of course, instead of using that scroll down arrow, I can just type in 50. And I'm going to type in 50 here as well. Now I've got a lot of aerial photograph on this map, and I need to put some other elements in like a title, scale bar, north arrow, a legend, and things like that. So I'm going to come up to my Tools toolbar, and I'm going to grab my Select Elements tool. Then I'm going to come out into the layout view and click on this data frame. Notice how it highlights with little blue squares. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I have room to put a title at the top. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller at the bottom so I have room to put some of my other information there. Now, I also would like to have a locator map so that people that look at this map have an idea where on the planet this is. So in order to create a locator map, I'm going to go ahead and add another data frame to my layout view. Now to add another data frame, I'm going to have to come up to the pull down menu and select Insert Data Frame. Now here's my new data frame. I'm going to pull it off the layout here so we can see it. Now if I want to create a locator map, I'm going to need to have some data in here that I can reference this view to. Now I could pull down the polygons for Chestertown, And it's very simple to do. If I come over to the table of contents, I can simply grab this polygon layer and I can drag it down to my new data frame. If I turn it on, you'll see there's Chestertown. I could also pull down the county layer, and it's giving me a little bit of a warning here, which we'll cover in a later lesson on data frame properties. I can turn on counties, and now I can see my county layer. Now, when I have this data frame active, the zoom tools will function for this data frame. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. And I'm going to try to decide, do I want to have a locator map that just shows Chestertown, or would I like a locator map that shows where this is in the county? Which should I do? Well, I think I'm just going to go with Chestertown. And I'm going to go ahead and select Chestertown, and I'm going to zoom to layer. If I can get that to work here. And this makes Chestertown quite large. I'm going to go ahead and turn the county boundary on so that I can see some information. Right now it looks like I have Chestertown is transparent, so I'm going to go ahead and make that solid by coming to Chestertown polygon, opening up the layer properties, checking my display tab, and making the transparency 0. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this back into my layout. I'm going to put it here in the corner, and I'm going to shrink it so it's a little bit smaller so it doesn't occupy a lot of space on the map. Now you'll notice that the data frame that I inserted has a hollow background, so I can still see the aerial photograph underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and open up the properties for this data frame by making sure that it's selected. Then I'm going to right click and open up properties. Now in this property dialog, the thing that I'm going to play with right now is called the frame. So I'm going to come up here and select the frame tab. I'm going to make sure that the background for this is a color. I'm going to go ahead and pick white for right now. Then I click OK. Ignore this message by just clicking yes. And now you can see I have a little bit of a background to it. Now notice that my Chestertown's no longer filling the entire screen like it did before. So I'm going to go back to the table of contents, right click, and select zoom to layer. Now I have Chestertown nicely centered in the map. The trick next is to, how do I show on the locator map what view I'm showing on the main map? Now in order to do that, you have to use what's called extent rectangles. So I'm going to right click on my locator data frame again. I'm going to go to properties, and I'm going to select the extent indicators tab. Now what I have to do is I have to link the two data frames. So my other data frame is called layers. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to move it so that it shows the extent indicator in my locator data frame from the main data frame. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And notice what appears is I have a red diagonal box that corresponds exactly to the geography that's shown in my main map. Now I can go ahead, I'm going to click away so I deselect my locator map. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on and insert a title. So if I want to insert a title, I'm going to go ahead and click Insert Title. I will adjust this title so it's above the map, and I'm going to call this Educational Facilities in Chestertown. And nothing's happening, so I didn't open up the dialog box. I actually have to double click on it until I see this property screen. And now I'm going to go ahead and replace that weird text that's there now with this text. Educational Facilities in Chestertown. And I'm going to go ahead and type Maryland so we know what state that we're in. Then I click OK. Now if I look at that, the font size is a little bit small. I could make it a little bit bigger. So if I select the title again, double click, in order to change the font size, I have to come down and select the Change Symbol button. So I'm going to click Change Symbol. I'm going to make the font size a little bit larger. I'm going to try 26 font size. If I wanted to, I could change the font type. If I don't want to use Arial, I could pick any one of a number of fonts. Let's say, for example, I want to get creative, and I'm going to use Shonar Bangla. Never used that one before, but it sounds pretty interesting. And you can see a sample of it up here in the dialog box. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and then OK again. That actually made it look smaller. So I'm going to go back, change symbol, and I'm going to increase the size to about 36 and see what happens. I'm going to click OK, and then OK again. Now it looks like it's the right size, but it's not centered. So using my Select Elements tool, noting that the title is highlighted with this blue dashed line, I'm going to go ahead and move this up slightly above the map. So it looks really nicely centered, and I think it looks good. Now, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to insert a scale bar. So I'm going to come to my Insert menu and select Scale Bar. Now, if I wanted to, I could use Scale Text. But in this particular example, I'm just going to use the scale bar. So I click Scale Bar. Now, ESRI's ArcGIS software gives you a number of options that you can pick. I have a tendency, maybe I'm a little bit lazy, I always kind of grab the first option. So I'm going to select that scale bar, and I'm just going to hit OK and see what happens. Now, notice that it shows up in the middle of the map. That's not where I want it. So again, using my Select Elements tool, I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to move it down here so I can see. Now, I can't really read that very well, but if I want to zoom in on the layout, don't use these zoom in tools on the tools toolbar. Use the zoom in tools on the layout toolbar. So I grab that zoom in, and I can come down here and take a close look at what that looks like. So I can see that my scale is in miles. This is actually appropriate for what I want to do, but I could make it a little bit bigger. So grabbing my Select Elements tool, I can grab one of the middle handles on the scale bar, and I can stretch the scale bar out. I'm just going to go ahead and have it show a distance of 4 miles. If you want to adjust the settings of this, let's say this came up as feet or something like that, or maybe some other measurement unit that I didn't want, I could double click on the scale bar, and then I could go through the scale line properties. I could look at the scale in units, so I could adjust the division units to something else besides miles. I could adjust the number of marks, for example. I could adjust the format, what the font size is. I could adjust the frame. I could put a border around it. I could put a background around it. A lot of different things that I could do. But in all honesty, that looks pretty good just the way it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit from my view. And the next thing I'm going to put on the map is I'm going to go ahead and put my logo on the map. So my logo is Washington College. I'm going to come up and click Insert, and I'm going to insert a JPEG image that I have for my logo. That would be a picture. So I scroll down and select Picture, and I have to look for my logo. Now I hide all my logos on a portable hard drive, which is currently unplugged. I'm going to plug it back in, wait patiently for a second or two. It finds my G drive. I open up my G drive, and I have a folder on my G drive called Logos. So I go into Logos, and I scroll down to decide what logo I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and use the Washington College logo. Maybe today I'll use the one with the signature on it. So I'm going to grab that one instead. Notice it's a little bit too big. I really want to fit it into this space down here. I don't need to make the logo so large, but I want to have it on there. So I'm going to shrink the size of it. Put it right down here at the bottom. I can't really see what I'm doing, so I'm going to grab my layout zoom, go ahead and zoom in on the map a little bit, and now I can make sure that it's properly lined up with the edges. I don't want to get too close to the edge of the paper, because if you get too close to the edge of the paper when you print it, it won't print correctly. If I wanted to see what the printer margins were on my printer, what I would have to do next is I'd have to come to the File, Page, and Print Setup. So I would select File, Page, and Print Setup. And in this setting here, I would notice that a couple different things. One is that my paper size is letter. I'm currently in the portrait orientation. Potentially, depending on how the map was shaped, I might have used the landscape orientation. But I'm not using my printer paper settings because this is not checked. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. And what it will do basically is it'll put a dotted line showing me the edge of my printer margins. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now we'll notice when I zoom in that I have placed, now see what I did, I do this all the time, and you'll do it too. I went ahead and grabbed the wrong zoom tool. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the back button, grab my layout zoom tool, and when I look at this, I can see that I'm going to put my logo outside the printer margins. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of rapid readjustment here. And the way I'm going to handle that is grabbing my select elements tool. I'm going to move my data frame to make it a little bit smaller. I have to grab my locator map and move it up. And then I'm going to grab my elements. I'm going to put all my elements inside my printer margin. This way, when I print, nothing will get cut off. That was a pretty quick little thing. Now, looking down at the scale bar, got my logo, locator map, main map. I'm missing a north arrow. So I'm going to go ahead and select Insert, North Arrow. Now, there's a lot of different north arrows you can pick. Tons of choices. I generally like Esri North 9. I just think it looks cool. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I can put my little north arrow right there. No problems at all. Now, I've talked about in my previous lecture of elements of a good map. One of the things I'm missing is my data sources. So I'm going to go ahead and insert some text, not a title, just regular text. And you'll notice it pops this up here. I can start typing it right away. So I'm going to go data source, colon, and I'm just going to say GIS program. Now, technically, the air photo came from the county. The dots we probably made. The boundary came from the probably the State Highway Administration. So if I wanted to be totally accurate, I put all of that information in. But to save time, I'm just going to say data source GIS program. I don't really have to put the author of the map in here because I put my basically organizational logo. I don't need to get individual recognition for this map. I just want to make sure that the program at the college gets recognition. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom out and take a look at the map. So what am I missing? Wonder what these different colored dots mean. I do not have a legend. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a legend. The other thing is that I do have roads turned on here, and it's kind of hard to see them because of the air photo. But if I turn the air photo off, you can clearly see the roads. So maybe I want to make my road lines a little bit more visible. Now, in order to do that, I might want to make the line a little bit thicker. So I'm going to come over here to the table of contents, double click on my line. I'm going to make the thickness of this gray line 3 so they stand out. We'll click OK and take a look at it. Now, I'm looking at the map here and I still don't really see the roads. So I'm going to change the color of them and I'm going to make them red. I'm going to click OK. Now they really stand out, but perhaps they're obnoxiously standing out. So red may be too bright of a color. I'm trying to think of a different color to pick. Maybe a color like this electron gold. Maybe I'll make them not quite so thick. So I'll make them thickness 2, slightly subdued color. See, that looks a little bit better. It's not completely clashing and drawing your focus to the roads when the focus of our map is really the schools. Tell you the truth, I'm going to make it even a little bit lighter color. I'm going to go one shade down. I'm going to go with mango color. Click OK. That seems a little bit better to me. Now, I still don't have my legend in yet, but when I look at these roads, let's say I was actually trying to find these schools, it would be extremely helpful to have the road names on there. Now, if I'm lucky, these major roads might have the name of the roads there, but the only way to know for sure is to open up the attribute table of major roads. So I'm going to come over to the table of contents, I'm going to right-click on major roads, and I'm going to open the attribute table, and I'm going to see what information is available. Now, when I open that out, the very first field I see is called street. There's my road name, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right-click on major roads. I'm going to go to the properties field. I'm going to select the Labels tab right here, and I'm going to see what's showing up in terms of what will be labeled. So I don't want to have street name. That first field I saw was called street. So I'm going to pick that, and then I'm going to check here, label features in this layer. So I'm going to check that, then I'm going to click OK. And when I do that, I can see I have road names, although they're certainly not very visible. The other way you can turn labels on and off, if you come over to the table of contents, right-click on major roads, you do have an option to label features and not label features. But I need to do something to these road names to make them stand out. Now, to show you what I'm talking about in a little bit better sequence here, now I actually moved my layout screen. There is a back button on the layout toolbar, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to go ahead and use my layout zoom tool. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so I can see these road names. So when I zoom in, I can see them fairly well. They look like they're about the right size. I could maybe make them a little bit bigger. I'm going to go back to the Properties of Major Roads, select my Labels tab. I'm going to make the font size a little bit bigger, 10. And I'm going to put something that's called a halo behind my road name labels. So if I click the symbol button, opens up the symbol selector for the text. Then I click the button called Edit Symbol. And in this dialog, there's a tab called Mask. So I'm going to click the Mask tab, and I'm going to turn on what's called a halo around my text. This puts a little bit of a white background around the text, and it makes the text pop out a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and then OK, and OK again. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back to my previous extent. And it's kind of hard to see here on this particular screen, but it does look like the road names are popping a little bit more. Now I'm ready to put my legend on the map. So I come up to the Insert dialog, and I'm going to select Insert Legend. Now, currently I have two data layers, polygons and counties. Well, this isn't exactly what I want to do. These are the legend items for the new data frame or the locator map. Now notice in the table of contents that the locator map's data frame is highlighted. So whenever you have a highlighted data frame, basically anything that you apply to the map is related to that new data frame. Now, I'm doing this on the fly, kind of lecture, so that makes me realize that when I inserted this scale bar down here at the bottom, I really wasn't paying attention. This 4 miles is in relationship to the locator map, not my main data frame. Oops, but I can fix that. Now, to make the main map the active data frame, if we come over to where it says Layers in the table of contents and we right-click, there's an option kind of near the bottom called Activate. And when I activate that, notice how it becomes highlighted in dark. I'm going to go ahead and redo the scale bar first. So I'm going to select the scale bar that I did that's located, basically related to the locator map, and I'm going to delete it, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and insert another scale bar. I'm going to use the same one I used before, click OK. When I pull this down, notice the difference in mileage. Instead of being 0 to 4 miles, now it's 0 to 0.2. Now, anytime you get under about 1 mile, it's really not good to use miles. I'm probably going to use feet. So I'm going to open up the properties of the scale bar, change my scale in units from miles to feet. I'm going to click OK, and now I have 1,040 feet. Now, when you make a scale bar, you really don't want to have a scale bar end on kind of an odd number like 1,040. If we grab this middle sort of handle and we either move this in just a little bit, just by adjusting this, I can get it to end on a nice even number. So now it ends on 0 to 1,000 feet, which makes a lot more sense. Who wants to try to do measurements when it's 1,040 feet? Everything else down here looks okay. The scale locator map looks okay. Now that I'm looking at it, though, it would be kind of cool if it said Chestertown here. If I activate the data frame for the locator map and I open up the attribute table for Chestertown, I can see that we have the name Chestertown. So if I right-click on this data layer and select Label Features, the town of Chestertown will appear. Now, unfortunately, it's kind of in an awkward location where the town of Chestertown is appearing right where my red line is. So this is not a very good placement of the text. Now we're going to get a little bit advanced here. This is actually something we actually have a whole lesson on labeling and annotation. I'm going to give you a little quick preview right now. If I come over to the new data frame, which is my locator map, right-click on polygons, there's an option to convert labels to annotation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to a graphic that I can move around. So I select Convert Labels to Annotation. I'm going to store the annotation not in a database, but in the map, and I'm simply going to click Convert. Now I can come and change the location of this text. Now, I try to grab it here. I'm not going to be able to grab it here because this text is actually controlled in the data frame, not the layout view. So I'm going to switch to my data frame view. I'm going to activate my locator map data frame. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this text. Notice it's highlighted. Now I can move this text up here where it's not in the way of where that rectangle will be. Then I simply go back to my layout view and notice how I've successfully moved the location of that Chestertown text. Now that was quite a lot for me to spit out at you in our introductory workshop. So if you end up missing a couple of these details, we'll understand. Technically, I might even bump that down a little bit lower, but I'm going to let it go for right now in the interest of saving time. Now I'm going to go back to my full view of the layout. Notice that my active data frame is not the layers. So by clicking on it, you want to make sure it's highlighted. Now I can insert my legend. So I'm going to come up and select Insert Legend. And now I have the points that I'm actually interested in. Now notice that I have a bunch of stuff here, this aerial imagery. If I were to expand this over in the table of contents, you see that my aerial imagery is comprised of a number of different files. I don't want to have any of those in my legend. So we have the map layers on one side of this dialog, the legend items on the other. I'm going to go ahead and select this button that will basically move everything over to the other side. Then I want to pull my points in. Now, if I pull my points over and I pull my major roads over, notice that the names of these may not be exactly what I want to say in my legend. So I'm going to click Cancel here for a second. And if I come over to my table of contents, I'm going to rename these names in the table of contents to match what I want to say in the legend. So these are points, and we're calling them educational facilities. So I'm going to call it educational facilities. Now I will warn you that one thing you can very easily do in ArcMap, since there's no spell checker built in, you can misspell words. And I'm actually noticing at the title I've misspelled the word facility, so I'm going to come back and fix that. This major roads has an underscore between major and roads, and what I want to do is get rid of that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change that to just say roads, because some are major and some aren't. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go back and fix my title where I misspelled the word facilities. I'm going to select it and double click on it, and I need to put an I in between the T and the E. Facilities. So now I've spelled correctly. Nothing's worse in a map than having a misspelled word in the title, because when people look at your map, they go, geez, you can't even spell the word facilities. I question the rest of the data in your map. Now I'm ready to go back and insert my legend. So I'm going to go Insert, Legend. Again, I'm going to get rid of all that stuff, and I'm just going to bring over educational facilities, and I'm going to bring over roads. Then I'm going to click the Next button. I can have it say legend in there, but it's pretty obvious that legend, I don't need a title, so I can get rid of that. You could play around with the rest of this stuff to your heart's content. I'm going to click Next. I can have a border. Now, I'm probably going to need a border around my legend because of the air photo in the background. I'm going to want to have a border. So I'm going to make a border, maybe a 1-point font size border. I'm going to give it a background. So I'm going to give it a white background so it matches the background of my locator map. And notice there's a gap built in. This puts a little bit of space between the legend lettering and the outside border. If I wanted to, I could round it off, but I didn't round off the box from my locator map, so I'm not going to round off the box for my legend. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Now, I do have some options here if I wanted to change some of the ways that the roads appear in the legend. Here where it says line, I could click this drop-down arrow. And if I wanted to, I could have a curve or flowing water or an incline. But basically, this is a road, which in most cases are straight, so the horizontal will work just fine. I go ahead and click Next again. I could tweak all of these things in here if I wanted to. You can feel free to play around that. I'm not going to. I'm in a hurry. I'm going to hit Finish. So my legend pops up. Now it's actually quite large. It's a little bit too large for the map. So I'm going to pull it over here and I'm going to resize it so it's approximately the same width as my locator map. So I have a little bit of kind of balance in my map. I'm trying to make it smaller here. Now if I zoom in a little bit, I can have a better idea of what I'm doing. And I'm going to show you how to fix a couple things here. So I'm going to have it basically a little bit larger. There, see now it matches the width more or less. Notice how it says educational facilities and then anno text. Well, I don't want that in my map. So I'm going to come over here in the table of contents and right where it says anno text, I'm actually going to delete that. The other thing is that notice how in Chestertown Middle School is MS. I'm going to go ahead and make that say middle school. Notice it's all caps, so I'm going to have to go all caps. And I'm going to click, put a space between middle and school. So you notice how I'm modifying the legend. So I'm going to go back to my full layout view. And voila, there's my layout. Now would be a really good time to save. Actually, it wouldn't have been a bad idea to save a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and save now. I don't want to save over my original document. I want to give it my own name. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call this Stu's Map. And then, of course, I did take the caps lock off, so Stu's Map. Then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So now I've saved my map document. If I wanted to print it, I could print it, but perhaps I want to email this to someone as a JPEG or a PDF. What I might do next is go File, Export Map, and then I have an option to save the map. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this in the data folder for my GT-101 course, map layouts, Chestertown map layouts. Then I'm going to decide whether I want to save it as a JPEG or a PDF. I have a number of options I could save as. A lot of times I will just save as a JPEG map. I can control the resolution of the map, so if I don't want to have a really super large file size, about 200 dpi generally produces a decent map. Then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. It exported this to a JPEG, and I can go ahead and close ArcMap. Now I'm going to validate that I have a decent map by going to my Windows Explorer. I'm going to navigate to my C drive, GT-101 folder, Map Layouts, Chestertown, Maryland, Map Layouts, and then scroll down and I will see my stusmap.jpg. You'll notice this is about a little bit under 3 megs, so it's not too large to email. And this is for your lab exercise when you're done. This is what you're going to upload to geoworkshops.org. I'm going to go ahead and open this up and take a look at it. And voila, there's my map. Now, is this the prettiest map I've ever made? Probably not. But it didn't take me too long, approximately 34 minutes, and I have a really nice layout. If I knew I wanted to use this layout again, I could save it as a template, and the exercise goes over how you might be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and end my lecture now because I've already been talking too much, and hope you enjoy the exercise. Doing map layouts is, I think, one of the funnest parts of doing GIS. So have a great day.